Hello, my name is Robert Fremont. I'm from the New Zealand Institute of Language, Brain and Behaviour at the University of Canterbury. This is the sixth video in a series of videos showing how to use our corpus annotation system called LaBB-CAT. In previous videos I've showed how to install the software and upload data into it, how to do basic searches, and how to do manual and automatic annotations. In this video we'll be looking at a specific type of automatic annotation, that is annotation based on lexicons. LaBB-CAT can be integrated with, for example, the Seelix lexicon, which can be purchased from the Linguistic Data Consortium, or the LDC, and it includes lemma, part of speech, morphological, phonological, and frequency information for English, German, and Dutch. If you don't have Seelix and you're not in a position to buy it from the Linguistic Data Consortium, there is another lexicon that you can use for English data, the CMU Pronouncing Dictionary. That's actually included in LaBB-CAT. You can install it directly and create layers very much like the layers that we will create in this video. So in this video we will install the Seelix Layer Manager. We'll use it to create new annotations for word morphology, syntactic category, and phonology. We'll compute speech rate in syllables per minute, and we'll also incorporate the new layers that we've created in more sophisticated searches. Now first, to get started, if LaBB-CAT's not already running, we need to start it up. So we'll double click on our LaBB-CAT icon. Once that's up and running, our web browser will open on the LaBB-CAT homepage. Now the first thing we're going to do is install the Seelix Layer Manager. This requires having the LDC's Seelix data files on your computer, which will be processed by the Layer Manager in order to insert the data into the LaBB-CAT database. If you receive the Seelix files in a zip file, you'll need to unzip that file into a folder and remember the location of that folder, as you'll need it during the installation process. Now first of all, we're going to create a new project for our Seelix layers. We'll go into the Projects menu. You can see some projects that we've created in previous videos. We're going to create another one called Seelix. And click the New button. Now we're going to go to the Layer Managers option on the menu. And at the bottom there's a link that says List of Layer Managers that are not installed yet. I'm going to click on that. And in the list we will find the Seelix English Layer Manager. We're going to click the Install button, and that asks us for various bits of information. Now, most of this information is already filled in, and we'll leave that as the default. The main thing it needs to know is where the Seelix English files are, the ones that you received from the LDC. Okay, once we've got the location set there, we click Install. And here we can see the Layer Manager installing the data from the data files. Once it's finished this process, you can delete the files or move them to a different location, it doesn't matter, because what the Layer Manager actually does is load all the data inside the files into its own database. And now the Seelix English Layer Manager has finished installing, and we can see a page of information about the Layer Manager and how to use it. Now this page is useful because it has some instructions on how to create a Seelix layer. It's got some step-by-step instructions here that you might find useful. We're going to go through them now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a layer with morphological parse information. So we're going to go to the Word Layers option, scroll to the bottom, we're going to add a new layer, This is a text layer. It's not aligned. The layer manager should be Seelix English, and we're going to put it in the Seelix project. Now we'll click the New button, and now we have to configure the layer. Now the way that the layer manager works is it looks at the word annotations stored on the orthography layer, so we want to leave the source layer as the orthography layer, and it looks up information that we select using one of these selectors here. We want the morphology, so we'll select that option. You can see that the SQL query here appears. There's no need to be frightened of that. You can change that if you know SQL and know the way that the Seelix database is structured. You can customize the information that it looks up. If you don't know SQL, then that doesn't matter. You can just select one of these preset options and you'll be fine. Now there's one further thing about this configuration page that I'd like to point out. At the bottom there's this box marked test word, and it has the word testing in it by default. This just lets you test your configuration that you've set above to see what the result will be when it comes back from Seelix. So in this case we've got the word testing in there, and when we look up the morphology, this is the result we get, test plus ing. We can change this to something else. It will look up that word using the configuration we've got set and display what the result is. So that lets you be sure that you're getting what you expect to get from Seelix. Now we're finished configuring, so we're going to click Save. We're going to regenerate the data. And now all of the tokens of the database have been looked up in Seelix, and those that return something have been annotated. So we're going to go and look at a transcript to see what that looks like. We're just going to click on the first one. We're going to tick our Seelix project, which reveals the Seelix layer we've just created, and then we're going to tick that layer to display it. And you'll see that above almost all of the tokens in the transcript, there's a morphological path that has been added. Now there are several tokens here that aren't in Seelix. For example, the word doesn't have an entry, and so it has not been annotated. The word Greendale is not in Seelix, and so it's not been annotated. But for all of the other tokens, they've been annotated with their morphological paths. Now that you've got these morphological paths annotations, you can use them in their searches. Let's look at an example. We'll just do a search. Now let's say you're interested in finding tokens of gerunds in your database. Now you could do a search on the orthography layer of everything that ends in ing, and that would get you lots of the things that you're after, but there would also be quite a few false positives as well. So you can see in your search results, we have got some verbs, being, coming, going, and so forth, but we've also got some non-verbs, anything, thing, and so forth. Now that we've got morphological paths information, we can weed those false positives out. So instead of searching on our orthography layer, we can instead search on our Seelix morphology layer. We want to search for annotations that end in plus ing. So we would search for anything dot plus followed by plus ing. Now unfortunately, in this particular case, plus has special meaning in regular expressions. It means one or more of the previous thing. And we don't want it to have its special meaning in this particular case. What we want to do is actually look for an actual plus character. So what we need to do is escape that. And the way we do that in regular expressions is put a backslash before it. So now our pattern is dot plus, which means anything, followed by an actual plus character ing. We'll do that search. We'll see that our results now don't have the false positives that we were seeing. All of these are verbs: being, coming, going, sobering, training, working, interviewing, looking, etc. Now we're going to create a layer for syntactic categories. We're going to go to the Word Layers menu option, scroll to the bottom, we're going to add a new layer called Seelix Syntax. Want it to be managed by the Seelix Layer Manager. Put it in our Seelix project. Click New. And this time we're going to select the syntax option. As you can see, testing comes back as a verb. Now if we put in something like fine, fine comes back with several results. A for adjective, adv for adverb, noun, and verb. Now what will happen, as we're about to see, is that all of the tokens will be annotated with all of these possibilities. Save this configuration. Now we're going to go and have a look at what that looks like in a transcript. We're going to untick our morphology layer and tick our syntax layer. And you can see that each of the tokens has been marked with a syntactic category. Now that we've got these annotations there, we can use them in searches as well. We're going to do a search for everyone. Let's look for instances of the word fine. And we're going to click on our first hit. We're going to scroll up to the top, tick the syntax layer, and we can see that fine has been annotated with an A. It's an adjective. Now if you just click on that and select Edit, that opens up all of the annotations for that particular word on all layers. And you will see that on the syntax layer, it's actually got 4 entries: A, adverb, noun, and verb. Now when you do a search, all of these possibilities are searched. So let's go and see that in action. If we go back to our search page, this time we're going to include our Seelix syntax layer. We're going to search for all instances of the word fine, which are also adjectives. And you'll see there's 7 results. And we're going to go back to our search and search for all instances of the word fine that are tagged as verbs. And you'll see that they are exactly the same results as we got when we were searching for adjectives. This is because all of the instances of fine are marked as being possibly an adjective and also possibly a verb. Now Seelix can also be used to retrieve syllable counts for words, which in turn can be used with duration information to compute speech rate. For each line in the transcript, we already have a start and end time from which we can calculate the duration of the line. All we need now is the number of syllables per line, and we can compute the syllables per minute speech rate for each line. The first thing we're going to do is create a new word layer and tag each word with their syllable count. Now this is going to be a number because it's a count of syllables. This will be managed by the Seelix English Layer Manager. We'll put that in our Seelix project there. And click New. Now in this case we are going to select the syllable count option. And in this case it's quite important to tick the first match only option. And I'll just illustrate why. Now you can see for our test word, it's come back with that as being a 2-syllable word. The syllable counts are based on the phonemic transcriptions in Seelix, and many words have multiple phonemic transcriptions with multiple syllabifications. If I enter the word family, for example, that comes back with 2 possible syllable counts. It can be a 3-syllable word, and it can be a 2-syllable word. Now, when the speech rate is calculated, all the tokens within the line will have all of their syllable count annotations summed up. Now, if we leave it like this, with family having 2 possible syllable counts, then they will be added together, and this will count as a 5-syllable word, which it definitely isn't. So what we need to do is tick the first match only option, and then the first match that comes back is the one that will be used. So each of our tokens will be tagged with only 1 possible syllable count. We're going to tick this save button and regenerate the data. And we're going to go and look at what that looks like in a transcript. The first transcript, we're going to tick the syllable count layer that we just created. And you can see that each of the tokens has a number above it that relates to the number of syllables in the word. Now what we want to do is, for each line, we want to sum up all of these and combine that sum with the duration of the utterance to get speech rate. So what we need is a meta layer, because this is aggregate information over groups of words. We're going to add a new layer called speech rate. That will be in syllables per minute in this case. And the layer manager will be the statistics layer manager. We'll put that in our Seelix project and click new. Now the layer that we want to summarize is the syllable count layer that we just created. And we don't want to count how many tokens there are. What we want to do is sum up all the tokens and then use that to get the rate per minute. So label sum rate per minute. We might as well do this for main participants only. We want to calculate the speech rate for each utterance, and I think we'll also tag each participant with their overall speech rate too. Click save, regenerate. And then we can go and see what that looks like in the transcript. So you can see that each utterance has been tagged with its speech rate, 208 syllables per minute, 292 syllables per minute, and so forth throughout the transcript. And if we click on the participant's ID, then we can see that also under their layers, they have not only the pause count that we calculated in a previous video, but also their overall speech rate in syllables per minute. As with all the other layers, this data can also be exported in CSV results files. It can be searched and so forth. Now finally, we're going to create a layer of phonemic transcriptions. We're going to go to the Word Layers option in the menu, add another layer called Phonemic Transcription. Now this is going to be managed by the Seelix English Layer Manager, and this time the layer type is going to be phonological. Put that in our Seelix project. And tick phonology. Now we'll go and look and see what that looks like in a transcript. tick our phonemes layer. And you can see that each token has been annotated with a phonemic transcription if there is one in Seelix. So there's no phonemic transcription for Greendale, and that's missing. But all of the other ones have most of the other tokens have their phonemic transcriptions there. Now you can see the phonemic transcriptions are in the IPA. Seelix doesn't actually use IPA directly. It has its own phoneme encoding system called DISC. The Seelix DISC encoding uses ASCII characters only. It uses ordinary typewriter characters only, and it has exactly one character per phoneme. So we've got it displayed here as the IPA, but you can actually show what the Seelix DISC representation looks like by ticking this option over here that says ASCII on that layer. And that will display the underlying phonemic transcriptions. Now this is a little less easy to read, but it's important to know about this representation because these are the representations that you have to use when you do searches. Now many of the characters used in DISC are exactly what you would expect them to be. Diphthongs are mostly numerals, and various other characters are used for various consonants. Now it's nice to display the IPA symbols, but it's also important to understand the DISC symbols, because they are what we have to use when we're doing searching on the phonemic layer. That's what we're going to try now. So we're going to go to the search page. We're going to select everyone, click layered search. Now what we're actually going to do is we're going to do a better version of a search that we did in a previous video. In a previous video we searched for instances of the word the, followed by a word that starts with a vowel, but we only had the orthography of words at that point. So many of the results that we got were false positives. For example, the one, the spelling of one starts with a vowel, but the pronunciation doesn't start with a vowel. We can improve on that now because we've got word pronunciation. So what we're going to do is we're going to tick our Seelix project, select the phonemes layer. We're going to do a search which is across two words. And then we're going to enter the on the orthography layer. And then on the phonemes layer, we're going to add a word that starts immediately with a vowel. Now, vowels in the DISC representation aren't just the letters A, E, I, O, U. There are diphthongs and other characters that are used as well. You will see that there's this little icon here that if we click on it, it actually comes up with a phoneme helper. And you can see each of the vowels and consonants, various consonants are listed here. And if we clicked on one of these, it would add the DISC representation of that particular phoneme into the box. Now what we could do is go through, start with an open square bracket and then click on each of these things to add each possible vowel into the list of possibilities we want to match for. And that's fine, but there's also a shortcut for doing that. Instead of ticking on each of these, I can just click on the word vowel and that will do it for me. So you can see in the box it's put in the square braces for us. It's added all the possible DISC characters for vowels, including diphthongs, and then it's put the close square bracket at the end. So we've got a match for any vowel. Then we want words that start with a vowel, so we're going to put dot star after that, and that's the search that we want. Now if we do that search, you will see that in the results we don't get any of the false positives that we saw before. We don't get the one or the once or anything like that. All of the tokens that we get are words that really do start in the pronunciation with a vowel. So you can see if you integrate with the Seelix lexicon, you can create various different types of word tag layers, morphological parsers, part of speech, phonemic transcriptions. It also includes frequency information, and so forth. Thank you very much.